Consequences for sins knowingly committed. Main scripture. Numbers chapter 15 verse 22. Now if you unintentionally fail to keep any of these commands the Lord gave Moses. Numbers chapter 15 verse 30. But anyone who sins defiantly, whether native born or alien, blasphemes the Lord, and that person must be cut off from his people. The 5 books of Moses are foundational for us. Their central message is that blessings or curses are determined by our adherence to the covenant. God instructed the Israelites to build a sanctuary to house the word of the covenant and anointed priests to proclaim its teachings. Unintentional and intentional violation of the covenant. Breaching the covenant brings consequences. However, if the violation occurs unintentionally or without awareness of its sinful nature, one can be redeemed through a sin offering. Numbers chapter 15 verses 25 to 27. On the other hand, anyone who sins deliberately or with full knowledge of its sinful nature will undoubtedly face separation. Numbers chapter 15 verses 30 to 31. God's punishment for deliberate sins. In the Old Testament era, intentional violations of the covenant were met with God's immediate punishment. For one instance, a man who gathered wood on the Sabbath was stoned to death. Numbers chapter 15 verses 32 to 36. This man violated the 4th commandment. Observe my Sabbath. To observe the Sabbath is a sign of the covenant between God and his people. Exodus chapter 31 verses 12 to 13. Tassles as reminders. The Lord, through Moses, directed the Israelites to make tassels on the corners of their garments. This was to serve as a reminder to uphold all of God's commandments and resist the temptation to follow the desires of their hearts and eyes. Numbers chapter 15 verses 37 to 39. Rebellion against Moses. Yet, even with these reminders, the Israelites erred again by challenging Moses' authority. Numbers chapter 16 verses 1 to 2. Surprisingly, the instigators of this rebellion were the Levites, who were entrusted with significant responsibilities in serving the tabernacle. The Levites. Numbers chapter 3 verse 41. Take the Levites for me in place of all the firstborn of the Israelites. The Levites were selected in place of all the firstborns of the Israelites. For that reason, they were given the responsibility of serving at the tent of meeting. Numbers chapter 8 verse 22. This duty bestowed upon the Levites were a significant honor from God. How did they earn this privilege? During the golden calf incident, they decisively stood on the side of the Lord, killing those who opposed him. Exodus chapter 32 verses 27 to 28. In recognition of the dedication they had demonstrated, God granted them the blessing, the honorable responsibility of serving as priests. Exodus chapter 32 verse 29. Being ungrateful for their privilege. However, Korah and his dissenting group forgot the privilege they'd been granted and began to grumble against Moses. Numbers chapter 16 verses 3 and 9. They now sought the priesthood and the position held by Moses. Numbers chapter 16 verse 10. What God demands from those entrusted with his duty is faithfulness. Why was Joshua selected as a successor of Moses' leadership? It was solely due to his unwavering loyalty to Moses. Church leadership by the faithful. The message remains relevant today. Those best suited to lead the church community are those who stay faithful to their responsibilities. Who can claim to be more faithful to the church than the pastor? The pastor who demonstrates the deepest commitment to the church should be the primary decision maker for all its matters. Conclusion. Consequences are certain for sins we knowingly commit. We must endeavor to refrain from committing actions we recognize as sinful.